In a shocking turn of events, I recently discovered that my 15-year-old daughter is not biologically mine. It all started when she was assigned a family tree project for her online class and began to express interest in taking an ancestry test. My father, who has since passed away, was half Native American, but the specifics of our Native American lineage were unknown to me. My daughter came to me with this information because it directly pertained to my side of the family, and we had not yet shared it with her mother. To our surprise, the results revealed that my daughter does not possess any trace of Native American DNA. A sense of confusion and disbelief swept over us as we grappled with this new knowledge and its implications for our family's history. I was blindsided by the obvious conclusion, my mind rejecting the truth that seemed impossible. My initial reaction was to assume there had been a mistake. Perhaps my father wasn't actually part Native American. But as I took the test, all doubts and illusions were shattered. The moment was filled with intense emotions for both me and my daughter. What will stay with me forever is her tearful embrace, hugging me tightly as she repeated the words, "I love you, Daddy," over and over again in a soft, quivering voice. It was a poignant reminder of our unbreakable bond and the depth of love between us. As I entered our home, my heart pounded in my chest at the thought of confronting my wife. When I finally did, her face was contorted with emotion, tears streaming down her cheeks as if she had just suffered a stroke. She begged for forgiveness and apologized profusely, but I could only imagine what she meant. You see, we got married because she was pregnant, or so I thought. We had been together for over a year when it happened. It turns out that while we were building a life together, she was also sleeping with multiple men. She claims it didn't mean anything, that they were nothing more than meaningless flings whose names have long since escaped her memory. But when she found out she was pregnant, she couldn't even be sure who the father was. In order to keep up appearances and maintain financial stability, she let me believe I was the father, and perhaps in that aspect she made the right choice. After all, my career has been wildly successful, and my hobby of building passive income streams has provided us with financial security. But at what cost? Our marriage now hangs in the balance as I come to terms with the truth of her infidelity. My daughter eagerly pulled out her phone to record the conversation, a small smirk on her lips. I could feel my heart pounding as I asked my wife for the truth once again, desperation creeping into my voice. She maintained her innocent facade, insisting that she had been faithful for the entirety of our marriage, but something in her eyes flickered, a hint of guilt or fear. I had never suspected anything before, but now doubts filled my mind and gnawed at my heart. Red flags of cheaters flashed through my mind, but I couldn't pinpoint any specific incidents during our marriage. My wife was not active on social media and didn't seem to hide anything on her phone. She rarely went out with friends and only drank on special occasions. As a stay-at-home wife and mother, she didn't have any co-workers to worry about, and with our state-of-the-art home gym, she had no reason to go to a public one. Yet, despite all this, I couldn't bring myself to believe her when she denied cheating after we got married. The thought of divorce crossed my mind, but then I remembered our prenuptial agreement and pushed it away with a heavy heart. My teenage daughter's emotions are like a raging storm, taking over her every thought and action. She is absolutely livid about the whole situation, her anger bubbling up and spilling out in a torrent of words and actions. I know how raw and intense teenage emotions can be, as I remember my own turbulent adolescent years. But my daughter has always been reserved and guarded with her feelings, making me wonder if it is something inherent in her nature or a result of my own parenting. The tension between my daughter and her mother is palpable, their relationship strained to the breaking point. My daughter has hurled hurtful insults at her mother, calling her a dirty S-word who tore apart our family. Whenever my wife attempts to reach out or communicate with her, my daughter explodes with angry tirades, unleashing a flood of tears and curses that I never imagined she was capable of. As Christmas approaches, my daughter is making demands for my wife to leave the house until after New Year's so she can spend time with her real family, meaning just me. She even came to me in private, expressing her desire to stay with me in case of divorce. In a shocking statement, she asked if it was possible for me to disown her mother and adopt her instead. These revelations have left me stunned and unsure of how to proceed. I have not yet shared this with my wife, unsure of how she will react to these explosive declarations from our daughter. As I watched my wife pack her bags for her holiday trip to her parents' house, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. We had discussed our current situation before, but it wasn't until now that we finally decided to wait until after New Year's to make any decisions. My heart felt heavy, and my thoughts were racing as she zipped up her suitcase and gave me a quick hug before heading out the door. I knew I needed some time to process everything that had happened, and I was grateful that my wife agreed to leave for a while. As I sat down at my desk, a wave of exhaustion washed over me, and I found myself writing this post as a way to cope with all the overwhelming emotions. After pouring my thoughts onto the screen, I drifted off into an uneasy sleep. When I woke up several hours later, I was surprised to see over 200 messages in response to my post. The kindness and compassion shown by strangers on the internet brought tears to my eyes and touched me deeply. Though I haven't read each one yet, I am grateful for every single message and plan on reading them all eventually. After our initial ancestry tests showed discrepancies due to my wife's lack of Native American blood, we decided to get proper DNA tests. It was a difficult decision, but I knew I needed to confront my wife about these discrepancies and learn the truth. Looking back at my original post, I realize I may not have made this clear. I must clarify that in no uncertain terms, she is my daughter and I am her father, regardless of the situation. Despite any doubts or uncertainties, I have repeatedly reassured her that she can always stay with me and that I will never abandon her. Some comments suggested that she might fear I will eventually leave her or reject her. This could not be further from the truth, as I make sure to tell her every day that she is loved and cherished unconditionally by me. Update number 1. To those who asked about whether I have any other children, the answer is no. There was no particular reason for this decision, it just never came to be. I also want to clarify, as it seems I did not do so in my original post, that proper testing has been done and confirmed that my daughter is not biologically related to me. However, that does not change the fact that she has been raised by me for 15 years and will always hold a special place in my heart as my daughter. I am aware of arguments against this, but I stand firm in my belief that biology does not define or diminish the love and bond between a parent and child. Lastly, I must acknowledge that this situation has caused some doubts and challenges in my relationship with my wife. Despite these obstacles, she has always been an amazing wife and mother, but we are both navigating through this together and striving to make our family stronger amidst it all. The once chaotic and frenzied atmosphere that filled the house after my wife's departure has since calmed down, but there is still a tangible sense of unease in the air. My daughter, though visibly more composed, still carries a heavy weight on her shoulders. It was during our heart-to-heart talk that she finally opened up to me about why she had become so upset. As it turns out, she is aware of some classmates who come from broken families due to infidelity. In most cases, when it was the mother who was unfaithful, the father would distance himself from his family. There was one particular case that my daughter knew of, where the father moved across a country after the divorce and now only sees his children once or twice a year. The realization of what her own mother had done must have been overwhelming for my daughter, as all these thoughts were running through her mind at once. My wife has been eagerly asking for a chance to talk with me and our daughter. She wants to explain something, and I can feel the urgency in her voice. My birthday is just a few days before Christmas, and my daughter has agreed to a video chat with her mother. I've reassured my daughter that if all she wants to do is listen, that's perfectly fine. She doesn't have to say anything at all. The anticipation builds as I wait to see what will transpire during this conversation. Update number 2. My young daughter and I have been spending an abundance of quality time together, indulging in playful games and cozy movie nights. But no matter what task I am occupied with, whether it be work on my computer or household chores, she insists on being in the same room as me, even when she is engrossed in her own activities on her iPad. After the initial shock and upheaval of recent events, I took a deep breath and reminded myself to stay calm and rational. My success thus far can be attributed to my ability to avoid making emotional decisions and acting rashly. I have always been one to carefully assess a situation and make calculated choices based on evidence. As part of this process, I decided to seek professional help. I hired a private investigator to keep a watchful eye on my wife's actions. Despite her having location services on her phone and GPS in her car, the private investigator confirmed that she had only left her parents' house once to go to the supermarket. This raised some concerns for me as her parents also reached out, worried about my wife's well-being. According to them, she had hardly left her room for meals and hadn't stepped outside the house since arriving at their place. The supermarket trip occurred a day or two later. The second man I hired possessed a sharp tech, savvy mind. He was a friend of a friend, but his skills were far beyond what I had expected. With precision and ease, he delved into my wife's computer, phone, and online accounts. As he navigated through years of data, I couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and unease at the extent of his capabilities. Together, we combed through every inch of her digital footprint in search of any shred of evidence that could confirm my suspicions. Hours turned into days as we sifted through endless streams of data, and yet, despite our thorough investigation, we found nothing to support my fears of infidelity. As I sat and reflected, a jumble of thoughts swirled through my mind. My eyes scanned over the words of my original post, and suddenly I saw their deeper meaning. Perhaps our marriage had not been solely based on love, but on external circumstances such as the pregnancy. Yet, despite this realization, I couldn't deny that we had grown to truly love each other over time. Our bond was undeniable. But then, a comment caught my attention, one that I had initially overlooked. To the person who left it, I express my gratitude for opening my eyes to a new perspective. The comment suggested that my wife's actions, her desire to be a stay-at-home mother and devoted wife, may have been driven by her intense feelings of remorse and guilt for her past mistakes. As these thoughts churned in my mind, I couldn't help but feel conflicted. On one hand, I was grateful for the beautiful family we had created together, but on the other hand, I couldn't shake off the pain and hurt caused by my wife's lies. It was a complex mix of emotions that left me with much to ponder in the days to come. Since my departure from the house, my wife has been discreetly contacting me. We have chatted briefly, but it has mostly been about trivial matters. However, after much contemplation, I agreed to have a serious conversation with her after our daughter had gone to sleep. As soon as she arrived, I could tell something was amiss. The once vibrant and composed woman now appeared drained and fragile, likely from crying and sleepless nights. Despite this, we engaged in a lengthy discussion, during which she repeatedly apologized for her deceitful actions. She confessed that she had always hoped I was the father of our child. She admitted to being young, foolish, reckless, and irresponsible when she became pregnant, but the experience forced her to reevaluate her life. She expressed deep regret for blurting out that she chose me because of my financial stability, acknowledging that it played a factor but not the sole reason. She then listed a multitude of reasons why she ultimately chose me as her partner. I won't delve into every detail of our conversation, but I can say with certainty that she was sincere in her desire to make things right and rebuild our family. We both acknowledged that things may never be exactly as they were before, but I reassured her that I wasn't ready to throw away the incredible 15 years we have shared together, years filled with love, laughter, and memories. As she poured her heart out to me, a sense of relief seemed to wash over her. Tears streamed down her face once again as she apologized for everything and promised to do whatever it took for us to be together as a family once more. As I looked at this woman, who had been my wife and mother to our child for all these years, I couldn't help but feel grateful for having such an amazing partner by my side. Today marks my birthday, a day I had eagerly awaited to finally have a talk with my family online. My daughter, usually so lively and talkative, was uncharacteristically quiet throughout the conversation. I took the lead in sharing updates about our recent activities while my wife was visiting her parents. Nothing too exciting happened during her absence. Then my wife spoke up, wanting to explain herself to our daughter. I've always believed there is a clear distinction between an explanation and an excuse, and my wife's words fell under the former. She didn't try to justify her actions or shift the blame onto anyone or anything else. Instead, she candidly shared the same things she had told me before. It was another lengthy discussion that cannot be easily summarized in a few sentences, but it felt like progress. My daughter listened intently, only interrupting to ask if her mother knew who her biological father was. Unexpectedly, my heart swelled at my wife's response. "Your real dad is sitting right next to you." The weight of those words hit my daughter hard, and she cried openly, apologizing for her initial harsh words towards her mother. A part of me couldn't help but wonder if my wife was simply stroking my ego by saying what I wanted to hear, but in that moment it didn't matter as long as we were making progress towards mending our family dynamic. Despite my initial fear and doubt, I found no evidence of my wife's infidelity. After numerous conversations and careful consideration, I believe we can move forward from this tumultuous situation. In order to heal and address any underlying issues, my daughter will begin counseling after the new year, and eventually we will attend therapy as a couple and family. We even discussed the possibility of spending Christmas together as a family in just a few days. This ordeal has been a wild roller coaster ride, but I am feeling hopeful and optimistic at this moment. As I sat at the bar, alone with my thoughts and a glass of whiskey, I raised my glass to toast my birthday. My daughter had already gone to bed, leaving me to contemplate the possibilities of our little family unit becoming whole once again. The soft music played in the background, providing a comforting backdrop to my ruminations. I couldn't help but think about the words my daughter had said earlier that day about her real father. They stung more and more as I replayed them in my mind. I knew she hadn't meant to hurt me, but the weight of her words lingered nonetheless. Despite this, we were still spending a lot of time together, and it had been wonderful. I made a silent promise to myself not to bring up the subject of her biological father again unless she chose to broach it herself. Later that week, we went to spend Christmas Eve with my wife's parents. My brother and mother joined us there, making for a full house. Before heading over, my wife, daughter, and I had agreed to be polite and cordial, but keep a discreet distance from one another. As expected, the day was filled with all the usual familial chaos and cheer. That evening, my wife came home with us and spent some time talking alone with our daughter while I indulged in a few Christmas cookies. Eventually, my daughter retired to her room for the night, and I was left alone in the living room, reflecting on how far we had come as a family and hoping for an even brighter future ahead. As the sun disappeared behind the horizon, my wife and I finally found ourselves alone. The soft light of the moon illuminated her face as she reiterated the things she had already said. Her voice was gentle, pleading for me to understand. I couldn't help but remember the comment from a wise stranger who mentioned that perhaps all of my wife's choices to stay home were intentional. Though she never explicitly said it, her words carried this message. It wasn't until she became pregnant that she realized she had to grow up and take on the role of a wife and mother. She worked tirelessly to be perfect in every aspect, pouring all of her energy into being the best version of herself for our family. We retreated to our bedroom, enveloped by a sense of intimacy and vulnerability. She knelt before me, tears glistening in her eyes as she promised to redouble her efforts to be an even better partner and mother. Despite knowing that I was considering divorce, all she asked for was a chance to prove herself. At that moment, with her head bowed before me, I could feel the weight of her sincerity, and though it was difficult to fully describe the mix of emotions coursing through me, I believed in her words. We spent a passionate night together, rekindling the love and connection we had once shared. At that moment, nothing else mattered except keeping our family together. The holiday season had arrived, bringing with it a mix of emotions for our small family. Christmas Day dawned bright and warm, but there was an unspoken heaviness lingering in the air. It was the first time just the three of us were alone since the truth was uncovered, and we were all acutely aware of the elephant in the room. But despite this, we tried to make the best of the day. We started off with our traditional Christmas breakfast, savoring each bite and sharing stories from past holidays. As the morning turned into afternoon, we sat down to watch It's a Wonderful Life, a family favorite that never failed to bring tears to my wife's eyes. Amidst the laughter and joy of opening presents, our daughter's request for a family game night caught us off guard. My wife excused herself from the room and returned composed, but I could tell she was touched by this simple gesture. We all hugged tightly, grateful for each other's presence amidst everything that had happened. As we looked forward to the new year, we knew that therapy was in our future. It wouldn't magically fix everything, but we were hopeful that it would help us move forward as a family. Through it all, I couldn't help but be thankful for the outpouring of support we had received from those who commented on our situation before. As Christmas Day came to an end, and we said goodbye to another year, I felt a sense of peace, knowing that no matter what challenges may come our way, my family would face them together with love and resilience.